So I'm out here every Saturday morning and I'm watering the garden because we don't have irrigation, so I do everything by hand. And when I was watering my oleander, I thought about a lady who lived not 2 hours from here in North Carolina who looked just as sweet as any other grandmother you've ever met. She went to church every Sunday. She took care of her elderly neighbors. She baked casseroles and she poisoned at least 6 people. Welcome back to Plots and Pots, where we dig up the dirt here, all kinds of dirt. So let's dig in. All right, so I want to introduce you to somebody, and this right here is my oleander, and she is today's star. She is gorgeous. The blooms, the deep green, she's very dramatic, very southern. So down here, oleander grows like a dream in North and South Carolina. She loves the heat, she doesn't complain, and she comes back every year without much fuss. So that's great. You can see it everywhere, literally. It's lining parking lots, it's standing proud in our front yards, it's growing big and dramatic in median strips, in ditches, you name it, she could probably grow there. Most people drive right past it and don't give it a second thought. It's like, oh, it's pretty. Yeah, great. But that's what makes it so interesting. She is one of the most poisonous plants you can have in your garden, and I mean that. Every single stinking part of this plant is toxic. Flowers, leaves, stems, branches, roots, nectar. Even the freaking water that you leave in a vase from having oleander blooms in it is toxic, people. The only thing that I didn't know is that if you were to prune this lovely plant and go to burn it, yeah, can't do that. Why? Because the smoke from the trimmings is also poisonous. So if you need to do some pruning and you need to cut it back, be sure to bag the trimmings, bag the leaves, dispose of them properly, and please wash your hands. You may even need to wash your gloves, or hell, at this point, just throw the gloves away altogether. So the toxin is called oleandrin. And basically what it does, it just damages the heart. So it causes arrhythmia, the irregular heartbeat. And it disrupts the electrical signals that keep your heart pumping, in rhythm. So in large doses, it is fatal enough for adults, children, pets. So there are some documented cases of livestock dying from drinking water, like in the stream where the oleander branches have fallen in. I don't know if that's true, but you can't take any chances, right? So here's what I want you to understand about oleander and about today's episode. This plant has been cultivated for thousands of years. The Greeks knew about it. The Romans knew about it. I mean, there's warnings going back centuries. So it's not new knowledge. The plant has always existed right alongside people who grow it, beautiful and dangerous in equal measure, hiding nothing, because it simply doesn't have to. Now, if you want to complete the killer garden tour, there's 2 other plants worth knowing about. And I know for certain that most of y'all have picked this up at Lowe's or at Home Depot, or you've, grown it from your own seed. But foxglove, people, those tall purple bills that you see everywhere in gardens, and could be along roadsides. I've never seen it along roadsides, but it is a typical staple for southern gardens. But that plant contains digitalis glycosides, and that can also stop your heart. So if I'm not mistaken, I think digitalis is actually the basis for some heart medications, but that is a whole nother lesson on how thin the line is between medicine and poison. All right, and the last one is deadly nightshade, Atrophia belladonna, and I may be saying Atrophia wrong, but it looks like it should be pronounced that way. But it's considered one of the most toxic plants in the entire eastern hemisphere. The berries look like little cherries, but they're not cherries. And belladonna in Italian means beautiful woman, because I think the Renaissance women used to dilute it and drop it in their eyes to make their pupils dilate, which was considered attractive. Okay. So just, respect the plant is all I'm saying. Now, I'm not telling you all of this to scare you off a garden because I want you out in the dirt. It's good for your soul, your mental health. It connects you to something real. And in this day and age, we really, truly need that. I'm just saying, know what you're growing. Please read the tag, wear your gloves, and keep these beauties away from kids and animals. And like I said just a minute ago, respect the plant. It's not out to get you, but it don't give a damn about you either. Okay? Now, on to Velma. Now, she wasn't a gardener as far as we know or from what I can find, but her story and today's toxic plant tour have one very important thing in common. The most dangerous things are often the ones that look the most harmless. Now, Velma was born in 1932 in rural, haha, I said it, South Carolina, and she was one of 9 kids and she grew up pretty poor. Okay. And some of the stories I read, she was picked on in school. Her dad was kind of abusive, so she didn't have easy childhood by any means. By 17, she dropped out of school and married her boyfriend, Thomas Burke. They settled in Parkton, which is in Cumberland County. I don't know exactly whereabouts, but it's in Cumberland County. And they had 2 kids. So, by all outward appearances, she was exactly what she looked like. She was a young mother, a young wife, a church going woman, just trying to make a life in North Carolina. In 1965, things started getting pretty rough for Velma. Her husband Thomas was in a car accident. She had to have a hysterectomy, and I think that led to like lower back pain, which then led to her taking prescription pills. And then taking those prescription pills turned into a way to cope with her pain, and then also with what her husband had gone through with a car accident, just him not having the best quality of life. So, of course, she starts abusing painkillers and tranquilizers, I believe. So, what started as a prescription became a full blown addiction. And we all know that addiction has a way of making people do things they never imagined that they were capable of. Now, Thomas ended up dying in a house fire in 1969. Okay, the fire was ruled accidental, and Velma collected on his life insurance. She remarried, and his name was Jennings Barfield. Um, and he died not too long after they were married. I'm not sure of how long, but he died of heart failure, and she collected on that policy too. Now, Velma had always denied having anything to do with either death, but people around her were starting to notice a pattern, and as they should. She was a devoted caregiver, and that was the thing. She took in elderly neighbors, looked after people who couldn't look after themselves, and she worked as a home health aide. So I don't know if that's any different from a CNA, but maybe back in the day that's what they were called. Or maybe that she didn't need certification. I don't know, but anyway, and she was praised for it, right? So she was known for it. When people needed something, they called her for that help. She was a woman who gave her time to the vulnerable, and that made her, pretty valuable in the community. So here's where things start to get dark. Velma's pill addiction had gotten expensive, and she started doing something to keep up with it. She was writing bad checks. She was bouncing that mess from one side of the county to the other. She was stealing money from people she cared for, like her elderly employers and even her own mother. So she started piddling with the small amounts first, just enough to cover what she needed, but the amount started to creep up, and that's when she started to worry about getting caught. Now, when it got to that point, that's where she made the decision that would define the rest of her life. She started using arsenic, rat poison, cheap, accessible, and at the time it was so hard to detect, harder than you might think. She slipped it into their food and in their drinks, and that's why I don't drink sweet tea. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just not a fan. But anyway, but she said it was just enough poison. She told herself, you know, tell herself it was just enough to make them sick. Too sick to check on their bank accounts, too sick to notice that the money was missing. And then with that logic, as stupid as it is, but with that logic, she later told investigators she never meant to kill anyone. She only wanted to buy herself time. And I was like, what? So whether that's the truth or whether that's what she was telling herself to survive what they'd done, I mean, it's pretty sad to say, but maybe both things could be true at once. Maybe she did feel bad, but she did have an addiction, but whatever. Um, but one by one, the people that she cared for started to die. So her mother, her own mother, Lily Bullard, an elderly man named John Henry Lee, oh, and his wife, she has the best name. Her name is Record. Record. Yes, you heard me right. Record. That is iconic. Okay. And then there was Dolly and Montgomery Edwards, an elderly couple that she cared for in their final years. And then finally her boyfriend, Stuart Taylor, and he died in 1978. Yeah, February of 1978. So Stuart come home one morning complaining of stomach pain, nausea, cramping, basically your typical symptoms that could be anything, right? And she drove him to the hospital. She sat by his side. She held his hand, and that woman watched that man die. She knew that the arsenic that she had put in his beer the night before, and then some stories say his cereal that morning, and then other stories have said his sweet tea that morning was the reason why he was so sick. And she didn't say a word. There's an anecdote, and she didn't say not one damn word, and that man died. So eventually it was Velma's own sister who called the police. She had started to piece things together, the pattern of illnesses and death around Velma, the life insurance policies, the stolen money, and she's the one that made the call. Stewart's autopsy confirmed arsenic poisoning. And so investigators started exhuming the bodies. They looked back at everybody who had died around Velma, and what they found was devastating, of course. So in May of 1978, Velma was arrested. She confessed to 4 of the murders, but she was only tried for Stuart Taylor's. I believe that's the one that the state probably had the strongest evidence for. And on December 2nd, 1978, she was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. Now, on death row, Velma became a born-again Christian, and by all accounts, from talking, from the hearing what the guards had to say, the other inmates, and the chaplain, she was genuinely transformed. She ministered to other women on the row. She was patient. She was kind. And get this, Ruth Graham, y'all, Billy Graham's wife, became her close friend and advocate. Okay, this woman helped start a clemency position that was signed by tens of thousands of people, and her own attorney believed that she was a changed woman. I hate to think. Now, Governor Jim Hunt considered granting that clemency from what I read, and then in October 84, he said, never mind. And his reasoning was he could not ignore the suffering of her victims. I thought that was pretty powerful. And rightly so. So, on November 2nd, 1984, Velma Barfield was executed by lethal injection at Central Prison in Raleigh. She was 52. She wore her pink pajamas, and her last meal was a bag of Cheetos and 2 Cokes. Now, the only thing that can be more Southern than that would be a moon pie, a glass bottle of Pepsi Cola with peanuts in it. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. It just seems very, I don't even know if common is the word, but it's just very, I would expect a little more for a last meal. But anyway, she became the first woman executed in the United States since 1962, and she was the first person ever executed by lethal injection in this country, which is a method, that is pretty standard to this day. 6 people are believed to died at her hands, even though she only confessed the 4, and most of them were elderly folks who trusted her. They let her into their homes, they depended on her, and they let her make their sweet tea, people. I'm telling you, just like you can't eat from everybody's house, you can't trust everybody's sweet tea. Now, the cruelty of it is what gets me. She was not considered a stranger to them. She was not somebody that they feared, but the person that showed up, she was the person that sat with them. She was the person that was supposed to help. And like I said, the most dangerous things often look the most harmless. So that is our second episode of Plots and Pots. My beautiful and deadly Oleander and Velma Barfield, Cumberland County's own death row granny. I think about her story from time to time out here in the garden, and it's not because I think my neighbors are trying to poison me. I don't. But because nature has always had a good reminder that beauty and danger live side by side every single day. The oleander doesn't warn you, it doesn't have to, it just blooms. It's just there. It's our responsibility to know how to handle it. Now, if you missed last week's episode, the very first episode, we talked about the disappearance of Cole Thomas from Benson, and that happened in 2016. The case is still open with a $50,000 reward. The tip lines are in that description of the video, so please go watch it and please help that family find closure if you can. Next week on Plots and Pots, we're heading to Madison County, the mountains, and it's a case that's never been solved. Her name is Nancy Dean Morgan. She disappeared in 1970, and what happened to her has haunted that community for over 50 years. And when that video goes up, it is almost to the day that she disappeared. How ironic is that? But anyway, we'll be talking about plants that thrive in the shade. I have some begonias that I need to plant and move a couple of hostas. Things that grow quietly in the dark, beautiful things that don't need a lot of light to survive. So, I appreciate you guys being here. And until next week, stay curious, stay dirty, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.